It's another geography lesson, as these always seem to feel like. So, first and foremost, we're going to be looking at Cambodia. As you can see, the wonderful Angkor, however you might say it, that we're so used to seeing on billboards and advertisements all over the place. And I believe that is Pol Pot there as well. Um, so let's take.
Actually, yeah, that temple was built to celebrate the famous beer from this country.
Oh,
So
Of course, yeah, yeah.
that's
that's
why the temple is called Angkor. Yeah, it just
right.
carries the name from the beer company. Yeah.
It's a shrine to the delicious beer. I mean that's an incredible piece of history there. Thank you. Um, so, guys, who wants to take it away?
Of course, I can.
Go on, Nighty. Be our
On the
shining
top,
knight.
yeah, on the top you can see the script, which you will also see later in a few example locations. It looks quite similar to Thai and Laotian, but is easily to differentiate because it's more square looking, not as round, but nonetheless quite similar.
Mm,
Just remember, if it looks square, it's Khmer.
square. Okay.
The first picture, the top left, is a kilometer marker made out of stone in a kind of French style. No wonder they were occupied or colonized by the French for a bit in the 20th century. And on the side, you see a 74 with a typical US American style road shield. That is the road number.
Okay.
Map. And you will be lucky if you see one of those in Cambodia because they can be quite rare. Next picture is a typical Cambodian People's Party sign. They can be in any kind of shape, be it small, be it narrow, be it only in Khmer. It's always blue and it always has the party logo on it. It's a definite giveaway for Cambodia.
Yeah, I guess the big Cambodian bit on it does help a little bit. I wish they had more of those
Of
signs about.
course, but the English is not always on those signs. It's just blue with that shield and sometimes a text in Khmer. But that blue is very easily recognizable. The landscapes, I'd say, let's skip over until we look at actual street view.
Okay.
But one thing Cambodia is famous for are their typical stilt houses. They are found almost all over the country, but especially in the floodplains along the Mekong and Tonle Sap River. They get seasonal floodings. Sometimes you don't see the stilts because people build their garages underneath, and the living space is one step higher, but those are almost exclusively found in Cambodia. And the cars, as you can see, sometimes you get a white car, sometimes you don't see a car but only a stubby antenna, but also sometimes you don't even see anything.
Okay. Yeah.
The white car is most prevalent in Cambodia, I'd say.
Right. I mean, first of all, the meta corner. I mean, I want that as a poster, if anything, in my room. It's like a brilliant addition, Ed. Thanks for that. So I guess the houses on the stilts. I mean, I kind of did assume that they were just for flooding. Is it just for flooding, or do they have any other purposes, or is it literally just for those kind of areas that get a lot of the rain?
Yeah, the whole Cambodia is very dependent on the Mekong River. Starts in China, and the delta is nearby here in Vietnam, and the river is massive. It's like it's a proper river, and there's just two seasons. There's a dry season, there's a wet season, and the wet season is full of monsoon. So yeah, it rains for half of the year, and the floods happen for a long time of the year, which is why the country is able to produce so much rice and all this fish and all of this stuff. So that's why Cambodia is the main country. At least in Geoguessr, you see houses on stilts. The places in Vietnam with houses on stilts are not covered on Geoguessr right now.
Cool. I mean that extra bit of context is really interesting. Thanks for that, Ed. So
Yeah,
we're gonna
Cambodia is one of the only countries in the world that farm their crops depending on the season. They just let the nature do their work, overflood the rice fields in the wet season, and yeah, that's how they do it.
sweet.
Yeah,
They don't
just a
irrigate or
minor
anything.
just a minor comment about the kilometer marker. It's like the French one, right? Like it's very similar to Romania or Vietnam, but it's sometimes very crucial for you to get a good score if you get close to one. Unfortunately, as you can see there, the highway or the road name, it's on the side only. So you need to be, if you're planning on moving, you need to get a little bit lucky to have a view. And in a few times you have cities and distances written in Latin. So in our case here, there is a city called Schoon or something. It's not the standard, but you can get lucky and get a distance to a city and written in Latin.
Okay, cool clarification. I think, yeah, obviously with moving that makes it a little bit easier, but we all know people who play moving challenges are not real beans. So we do have some locations to look at from lovely Cambodia. So I think the first location here is a classic example of that. Is it pronounced Kaima? Kima?
I think it's pronounced Khmer. You say Khmer, but I always say Khmer.
Okay, Khmer,
Yeah,
Khmer.
Westerners call it Khmer, right? Yeah, but yeah.
So here is a fantastic example of that kind of script. So the clue is looking for a slightly more kind of square look to it. Is that one of the
Yeah,
key
more
differences?
edges, not round. If you get the gist once, you can easily recognize it. It's hard to describe. It's just not round enough.
It looks like it's
yeah, like
Go on, Ed. Sorry.
go on.
No,
No,
no.
sorry. Like the thing is like it depends on the font they are choosing to write on. Like sometimes even Thai and Lao they can look pretty different, and other times they can look pretty similar. But yeah, overall, when I'm trying to look at the Khmer language, I'm usually looking at the top and the bottom of the text. They usually they have more. I believe it's called diacritics or the way they make their syllables. There's more stuff written on the tops of the letters and on the bottoms of the letters. That's usually
Yeah,
what
and
I'm looking
Thai
for. Yeah,
and Lao have more circles on top, as I've seen.
correct.
Real circles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess for
Once you have some practice, it becomes easier. It's not as hard as Lao and Thai, which is like you need to speak to understand like really well the difference. Like here, if you have some practice, you definitely can identify this language.
yeah, I guess from my perspective, as a bit of a neek, it looks like it's been drawn with a fat like calligraphy pen and like really kind of made quite boxy and edgy. So yeah, I think that's quite an interesting takeaway. I definitely struggle with some of the scripts, or as Mr. Tim Davids, aka Geoguessr, calls the squiggly lines. Um, yeah, it's something I struggle with. So I think some of these tips about how to spot them is going to be is key. So definitely a really good location to start with there. We have some beer meta here in our second location. I mean, we've already talked about the beer a little bit. Obviously, a sacred religion is built around this in the country. So, yeah, talk me through Angkor.
Every
Yeah, it's a very
single-
popular beer.
Yeah. Go on, Matt. Sorry.
Please, 19. No, it's a very popular beer, and they pay for the storefronts, right? So, if the little store or bar he wants to get a new storefront with his name, he can get it for free from either Cambodia beer or Angkor beer. So that's why you see so many. And yeah, they're everywhere. Oh, you can see even a Cambodia ad. So those are the two main beers, and they are even in the middle of rural locations.
Yeah, the smallest village in Cambodia, you can see Angkor Cambodia beer.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's definitely something that I've noticed and picked up along the way. It does seem to dominate a lot of the advertising, and obviously it's interesting kind of little factoid there that obviously helps pay for the storefront and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's interesting, and obviously, so Cambodia is literally just a beer brand in itself. The name of it is just Cambodia.
Yeah, that's another brand. Yeah.
Yes, I just can't. I can't imagine drinking a beer called like England or do you know what I mean? It's kind of
As
weird.
if Cambodia punches your face with the beer and with the Cambodian People's Party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even on this location, if you look north, you can see from far, you can see a little Cambodian's People Party ad or propaganda. If you look north, yeah, the blue one there, right? Like
Oh, this one
they are
here. Oh
everywhere.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
little crest. Yeah.
it's that easy to identify. It's that easy to identify because they're usually some white logos, sometimes some photos as it appears, but they are everywhere. And just like the beer ads, they can be found on the middle of nowhere in rural locations.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, talking about the political ads, we've got a few examples here. Again, this one doesn't say Cambodia on it in massive writing, but it does have that kind of logo that is almost like a crest, and three of the people. I'm not sure what their titles would be.
Yeah, and I think when you turn around, you can see, if I'm not wrong, another ad. Or not, it's on another location.
Yeah, we got
Doesn't
like
matter.
three for this, but
Yeah.
there's there's a classic one there. We've got another
And the
one.
houses, right? You can see the houses are lifted. All the
Yeah,
houses in the region are, some are very high, some are, the blue one is extremely high, but yeah, they are
yeah,
always taken care with the floods.
that's quite that's a very good point there. Yeah, so this is a slightly different version here. Again, the blue is kind of key here. This one's got a bit of a yellow border going on, and a very happy homosexual couple celebrating their marriage or something. So I think it's very progressive for the region. Um, yeah, I mean, so that's another one. I think that's probably the only one. Um,
One positive thing about Cambodia is that they have never problems with rigged elections.
Yeah.
Definitely a plus there. And I think one final. A different one again. So this one is quite different, but it's that kind of that crest again that we're talking about. Still on a blue background, so slightly different blue. They do. Am I right in saying they do seem to kind of at least two of them now have had kind of flags above the top? Is that quite a common
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
to see?
it's yeah.
Party flag and sometimes the Cambodian flag.
Yeah,
next to it.
interesting. Yes, I mean if you learn your flag, learn the crest. I mean this is going to definitely help nail it down if some of the other factors aren't there for you. So yeah, political signs very common alongside the beer. So let's actually take a look at kind of the environment around us. So first and foremost, we've got the description being a lush, hilly landscape. Now this feels like classic Cambodia to me. This is what I think of. This is where my head goes to when we get this kind of location on a challenge or something.
Yes, you can see the red soil, but it's also pretty hilly and lush. And when you see that, you're most likely in the west of the country, near the coast, where there's a small mountain range. It's not really mountains, but rather a rolling hilly area. I'd say
Yeah.
about a fourth of the country near the coast.
Yeah,
Definitely
most of
west
the
of
countries,
Phnom Penh.
most of the countries pretty flat. They are near the river delta. So yeah, if you see some mountains, usually go towards Thailand.
Interesting. So this another example here. So we've got kind of touched on the soil again. This is slightly lighter red soil, and this is in the north, towards the
Yeah,
border
to the
with
north
Thailand.
you can see also a small mountain range in a rather flat area. That means you're in the north of Cambodia. This mountain range is directly on the border to Thailand.
And the vegetation here is not as lush as southern areas or the mountain range. And yeah, sometimes you get northern Cambodia, and even the soil doesn't appear to be as red. But I think it's because the shot was done in the dry season, so it gets a little bit sandy. But the vegetation, the lower vegetation, usually tells you're kind of in the northern region.
Yeah, it's definitely got more of a dry feel to it. Not gonna lie, I could be seen dropping South Africa here. Not, I'll be honest. But that's
Yeah,
interesting.
Roraima is not a bad guess. Yeah, middle of Brazil. Yeah.
um, so got another location here. Some really good examples so far. So this looks quite a bit different to the last two locations we've looked at. So what's going on here?
Flat fields. That's the south of Cambodia, south of Phnom Penh. You see absolutely no elevation. Everything's flat. And we have prepared two locations, one in the dry season and one in the wet season. But you can also see slight floodplains from the Mekong River on the side of the road, and probable rice fields behind where rice will grow in the wet season. Yeah, very flat. Also not as red, in my opinion, as the west and the north.
Yeah, it's
Hint
definitely
of
Yeah,
orange.
a bit more of a sandy feel, right?
yeah, it's very interesting. On both sides of the Mekong River, you can notice like it gets a little bit sandier, lighter color. I don't know the reason, but yeah, it's not as red as the rest of the country.
Now I'm seeing some bollards here. Are these atypical? Are these common? Is this something to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I've seen those before. I think they're usually a little more square. These ones are kind of tall,
Hmm.
but they do have like the red cube part on the top with the white.
Yeah, it looks a bit like a match.
Exactly,
fat
and
match.
those bollards are always on the side of main roads.
Yeah, this is very much a big old proper road. Cool, and then we've got another location for this. Actually, I'll just show where we are on the old map here. NR1, as you can see here, far more southern, as we were saying. And the next location, I think this is an example from the wet season, as evidenced by that stuff you call water. To Cambodian People Party sign, which does help out with taking this location. But so this is sort of similar area, but this is during the wet season, right?
Exactly.
I think that's
Another political party sign.
the political side, yeah. So what I guess one thing I've noticed just off the bat, we've got a yellow line in the center of this road, and I don't recall seeing that on the last one. I guess is the yellow line here to kind of help maybe with flooding, or is that just something that is used in a country?
It's used in the country, but it's random where it's used.
Okay.
Sometimes you see a white middle line with those white stripes in between the lines. That's really random.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I cannot see any standards they follow. Maybe the continuous yellow, but again, there's not so many this type of roads in Cambodia. The coverage is so goes so deeply. Most of the places we get is like rural without any tarmac or nice roads like this.
Yeah, good point. And obviously, just again, NR1 again, just to show on the map. Very, very similar location. Obviously, just with some rain. So I think we're looking at more central here. Again, we've got a dry, sandy field to this one.
Yeah, this is also in the dry season, but you see a lot more vegetation, and this is along the Tonle Sap River and lake, where it's always, we can say, quite moist all year round, even if it's dry season. Very lush, very many trees.
And we've got an example of the white car here. And this time we've got yellow dash lines. So, yeah, something different again. So don't be going too crazy with your road lines when guessing. But let's just take a look at this on the map.
Liz, you would differentiate that to Brazil with the white car.
So there you go, white card to help you differentiate from Brazil. I also think there was quite a lot of the vegetation. It looks slightly differently. Maybe that I maybe difficult to pick out in say like a 30-second round, but I think there's like more palm trees. Maybe I could be wrong in saying that. But that's my kind of initial feeling after seeing that.
Yeah, I would agree. There's like different species of palm trees there, and I don't know how to explain them. They just look different than Brazilian palms.
Yeah. There's always going to be some subtle differences, and obviously, you know, for making a unique basic guess, you might not be able to pick up on that. But if you can start to notice those little differences, then that could be what saves you a hell of a lot of points if you guess in Brazil and it's Cambodia. So this is an example of a road sign. Now, is this quite a common type of road sign to see?
That is very uncommon. You see that almost always on junctions of major roads. So the numbers in shields, and even then it's just rare.
There's very few signs in this country. That's why you kind of need to rely on those kilometer markers, because finding one of those maybe will take you some very good minutes in a moving challenge to reach a sign as good as this one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I've ever seen this sign before. I probably have, but not kind of taken any notice to it. But yeah, it is quite interesting. It seems to be like a general lack of signs. But you know, as we can see, plenty of beer advertisements. So to make up for it. So yeah, if you do get one of these, you got and these are the same shields you see on the side of the those kind of French style signs we're talking about on the slides.
Exactly. The shields are the same on the signs and on those kilometer markers.
Fascinating. Right, well, there you go. It kind of links up. So I think I know we've seen a few houses so far, but I mean, just to really hit this home, we've got another example of a typical kind of stilt house here. This one seems, I don't know if it's just the camera, but this seems really high.
I don't know if there's a competition. Sometimes there's a competition going on with the neighbors, I think, because
But the
there's
whole
some
neighborhood has stilt houses.
Yeah. There's sometimes as you can see, this house on the other side is not as tall. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
Some of them are really tall.
I think they're just trying to level up this one over here. They're getting insecure. I've got the biggest erection, the house erected house. Sorry, it seems to be a bit of a house swinging contest. But yeah, I think so. So this is a kind of typical area. At some point, this area could be quite flooded, and obviously it's going to stop the houses from being washed away. I guess that's the
Yeah. There's one thing that the chat is discussing comparing to South America. Like Cambodia appears to be like most of the land is being used as farms, as rice paddies.
Mm.
So even when you see trees, they are usually like either like close to the road or between some roads. Like overall, the country is not that lush. So it's quite rare for you to have like a similar landscape in Brazil, like to be like so open. Maybe like some parts of Mato Grosso, but it's like the whole country is basically rice fields. There's
Yeah.
you can see trees everywhere, but they're not forests. They're not jungles as it used to be
Forests.
probably.
Christopher asked the flat Bolivian part. Bolivia doesn't have rice fields, and the flat part in Bolivia is not that much covered. You have the typical Bolivian style signs, which we discussed in the South America episode, everywhere, and almost everything is a paved highway, whereas in Cambodia, it's rural, it's in a small village with stilt houses. Or even if it's a paved road, it can be pretty torn apart.
yeah. I think what I've learned.
Yeah,
So I was just going to say, I think what I've learned so far from the podcast and from listening to you guys talk is, it seems to be when we kind of come up with these locations where it might feel, in general, a little bit like other places in the world. I guess from the differentiations, I think I've added some syllables to that word. Spotting the differences, I think it often comes down to what isn't there as much as what is there. So knowing, as Nighty was saying there, the type of coverage, the fact that typically the types of roads you see, you're not always going to have these details in every location. But thinking about, okay, well, I'm not seeing this. This is looking slightly different. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a way of approaching it. Seems to be, from listening to you guys guess and the way you calculate things, is you're considering what isn't there as much as you're considering what is there to help you really kind of nail it home. So I think
Exactly.
that
Just
approach makes a
excluding
difference.
things, what are there, what aren't there, and just deducting from then on.
Yeah, sweet. And just quickly, I know Milbrand rightly said, yeah, something he pointed out is staying under houses in the heat, place to kind of hang out, escape the heat, bit of extra floor space. You can see obviously here, everyone's got like a little setup, whether it's a garage or some tables and stuff. So yeah, that's something else you can notice about locations, which are pretty interesting. Cool. I think that is it for Cambodia. Ed, did you want to? I know I interrupted you. Was there anything else you wanted to add at all?
No, it's just the same thing you were talking about, like just the coverage in Cambodia. Google decided to cover it so densely. It's not that usual in other countries. So if you see like a very tiny road, there's not that many countries receive this type of coverage, right? Going to this very small roads in the middle of the country.
Yeah. Fascinating. Right. Well, I think that is it for Cambodia. Not gonna lie, plenty of information to take on. I think the script for me, that's been a big learning curve, and I think just kind of I didn't realise quite how prevalent the political signs were. I knew about the beers, but the political signs and the different forms of them that come in, yeah, kind of crazy. So that's certainly been an interesting point to make there. So yeah, that was Cambodia. Moving on to